I'm sure if there's dialogue, I'd be happy to do it.
So Brian, why don't you take some Q&A if you're so inclined?
That'd be great. Happy to. Yeah, I'm shocked. You have a question. That's so weird.
I'm going to make a comment first.
Okay.
Just so you understand where I'm coming from. Like, Gladiator was one of my favorite movies. So I'm more warlike. But also, I'm a believer. And I understand what you're saying here, no matter what you believe in. My question is going to be a little hard, because if you were the president of the United States, because I know your history a little bit of political, leadership. If you were the president of the United States right now, how would you deal with ISIS if you became president?
Wow, that's not the question I expected. I did not expect that. I think, I think we're all thinking about that right now. We have to be thinking about that tonight. You heard what happened in Nice. I really believe that, and I hate to take it back to what I just talked about, but I really believe that we have to shift cultures community by community by community. I have a goddaughter who became a member of the Green Party and ran for town council in England and has helped Syrian refugees come to her community and runs a whole community center. And here's the thing I take away from that, because I'm so moved by her stories. In most communities in Europe, they have not assimilated people at all. They just throw them into basically these little regions where they kind of wall them off and keep them there, and they're disaffected and they're not integrated at all. That's where the problem comes from. When we don't figure out how we're going to make something work, then it usually dysfunctions. That's my point. So I think we have to look at ourselves community by community and build something stronger. At the same time, realizing and truly, if a lot of you are not old enough to remember the 60s, but my dad graduated from the FBI Academy. We went back to Washington, D.C. I looked out the window of the apartment where he was staying. Half the city was on fire every single night. When we went downtown to look at the monuments, there were Jeeps with machine guns mounted on the back on street corners. When I worked there, people that lived during that time said there were days when they would be told they had to walk home into Virginia, that it wasn't safe or available to drive a car. We had riots going on almost nonstop in cities, deaths, threats, hatred, bitterness, division. We can get through things. That's the message. We can really get through things. And when lone actors go off and do these insane, horrible acts, we have to be really vigilant about that and try and stop it. But until society is strong, I don't think we're going to win. Bottom line. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So I'm on the board. I've known that you were going to speak for a very long time. I had an idea in my mind of what your presentation would be like. I said to John before, this is a real renaissance. Never expected what you gave us. I kind of feel like this should be the big chill weekend so that we could listen to you for several more days.
Oh, no, that'd be a bad idea.
I can tell you that I was recently in Washington for a week, and I Ubered everywhere, and I saw everything for the second time in my life, 30 years later. And almost every one of my Uber drivers was Ethiopian, and every single one of them was so excited to tell me about my Catholic. And they knew everything that I didn't know, and they knew all the secrets and all the places and how I could be safe and where I should wait to get my ride back. And it was amazing. But that's not my question. So I thought that you were going to talk about plants, and you did. You talked about Stinky. I followed Stinky. Tell me what you think about GMOs. On my way over here tonight, on one of the radio stations, there was this crazy, heated argument of people calling in to the radio host. And it was all about GMOs. And
Yeah, I think about it a lot. In fact, just today I read a lengthy article on GMOs. It's so weird that you bring that up because it is a hot topic in our world. Because for a lot of people in the Botanic Gardens world, there is an immediate reaction of GMOs are bad. And in the ag world, especially the large ag world, it's GMOs are good. And really here's this will surprise you again. I'm gonna say something really radical here. Science is not a religion. Science is not politics. Science is science. I was asked one time if I believed in evolution, and I just felt like, what a weird question to ask me. I said, I don't understand the application of the word belief to evolution. They said, well, do you believe in evolution? I said, I've studied evolution. I see evidence of evolution. It's been tested for an extraordinarily long time, but it's not a belief system. It's science. Science is about data, facts, time, change over time, replicability. It is not a faith-based concept. So when people talk about climate change, do you believe in climate change or do you not believe in climate change? This is both sides, by the way. It turns into this religious fight. I don't understand it. I think we're looking at amazing shifts and changes, and how could it not be changing? And how could it not be in one way or another tied to what we're doing in the world? Do we have definitive answers of what all that means yet? Not definitive. We have a lot of answers. I want to understand them. I feel kind of frantic to understand them. I think we all should. But from a scientific perspective, with GMOs, the question you have to ask yourself is, what are the risks and what are the rewards? The rewards right now, and the reason GMOs became so predominant around the world, is that our population is 7 billion, soon to be 10 billion. We've got to feed a lot of people. The Green Revolution in India and Southeast Asia and parts of Africa were based on the fact that you could actually grow things with less water and less risk. So they introduced a lot of these crops. Now, can you go too far? Yes, I'm certain you can go too far. Can you cross things that should never be crossed? Absolutely, I believe that too. Are there some benefits to GMOs? Absolutely, I see that too. You can actually believe a number of things around the same issue based on the evidence of the moment. And that's really my point. It's a fascinating thing to study, and I'd love to send you maybe a copy of this research report written by one of my colleagues, Peter Raven, who used to run the Missouri Botanical Gardens. It's fascinating. Do you know that some huge number of Nobel Prize winners just appealed to Greenpeace to drop their opposition to GMOs? And to read their documents is really interesting. Does Greenpeace have interesting stuff to read too? Yes. It's called science. Yes?
I have a question regarding adaptation. You know, when you're talking about adapting to your environment, there could be a potential ballot measure regarding open primaries to look at the makeup of our voter base here in Colorado. 37% of our voters are classified as independents. Do you think that's the right way to go, to adapt to perhaps what is a changing population? I don't think Colorado's the only state that may have that mix.
You know, I don't know. The open primary idea, I've always thought, being a partisan for so many years, I thought people in the club ought to be able to elect their own leaders. And people outside the club can just make a lot of mischief. It's not really the club anymore, though. You know, I'm going to sound really heretical here, but I grew up going to our caucus because it was in my house. And then I was a precinct leader for 26 years and mostly had it in my house. And I would beg and plead, and sometimes I get 4 people, and sometimes I get 3 people. When I was a kid, we used to get 40 and 50 people. We packed the joint. And it was a dynamic thing. And we discussed politics, and people debated which candidate was the best. It was all those things that really they were supposed to be about. Neighborhood gatherings, talking about the future and figuring out how to start up that whole process. Today, it is either incredibly manipulated or it's incredibly dead. And so I don't think caucuses work anymore. I would vote to get rid of them and go to a primary system. Now, who ought to vote in the primary? I don't really have a good answer for that yet, because there has to be something that would pull people together so that they can make a decision for their ideas, their bundle of ideas. I just think it's so disparate and dysfunctional right now. I don't even know how you would cluster that together. I kind of am intrigued with the idea of open primaries where 6 people could put their names up on a primary through petition, and 2 of them could be Democrats and 3 could be Republicans and 2 could be unaffiliates, and we all vote in a primary system and the top 2 go into the general. So you could have a Democrat and a Republican, and you got 2 Republicans, or you could have an unaffiliate and a Democrat, that kind of thing. Now that seems intellectually at least intriguing to me. I don't know if it would work, but it's kind of intriguing to me. I think we have to figure out how to solve the problem. And the biggest problem is us. Look in the mirror, we're the problem. We have to fix us. Yeah.
Hi. I really appreciated that you said that you have a lot to learn from plants. About 6 months ago, I started gardening a lot. I got a bunch of plants, and I feel like every time I go out in the garden, well, I mean, I have no garden, but I have a little patio, but I get into my plants and put my hands in the dirt, like, it reconnects me with what it is that we need as people. We need sunshine, we need water. I feel like as soon as I take care of the plants, I start eating more vegetables, drinking more water, spending more time in the sun. I found it so beneficial to our health. And I was just curious what your thoughts were on how we can spread that in the community. I mean, I know that Denver has urban gardens that, you can go and plant that, plants in the community if you don't have access to a backyard. But are Denver botanical gardens doing anything to try to help spread that? And is there any way that we can volunteer and help with that?
Great lead-in, thank you. We have an urban food initiative where we're working with Denver Housing Authority and Denver Health and Human Services, and we go into communities, have a whole curriculum teaching people how to grow food in urban centers. But then we also take markets with vegetables from our Chatfield property, take the markets out to various sites and address the issue of urban food deserts. We also bring in tons of kids and teach them about gardening. I think those lessons are profound, and I think getting outdoors, and again, it's a sense of wonder about a little bit of humility. If you've ever tried to grow a garden and then a hailstorm wipes everything out, you kind of figure you're not in charge of everything. You have to co-conspire with nature, and that's a wonderful thing. We pay more attention to weather and what's going to happen with weather at the gardens than I ever thought I'd pay attention to anything like. I mean, I've got all these weather apps. Dark sky is the best, by the way, and you can go onto that and see what's happening, and I'm watching it all the time. It gives perspective. It helps you open your eyes. You can see outside of just your own narcissistic self into this broader picture. So it's great. Thank you.
So if we wanted to volunteer, what would be the best way to go about that?
botanicgardens.org, and go to our volunteer page and see how you can help out. We have about, I want to say 2,600 volunteers right now, and it'd be fun to have you involved. Yes?
Aside from the black cherry tree, because you're right, it's a messy tree and it breaks.
Yeah.
What other trees in Denver, the metro area, would you recommend?
We're going to start that process of figuring that out. Right now, our research and conservation team, along with horticulture, are going to be looking at a whole bunch of different trees that grow well in Colorado, because if they don't grow well here, it doesn't really matter. They're going to be dead. So we're going to find out which ones are the best hosts for the largest number of desirable species, not invasive species, but desirable species. It may be that non-natives will be the answer, because we don't have a lot of fruit trees that are native to Colorado, and fruit trees are just better habitats for more creatures. But all of this is kind of interlinked after a while, and it's just kind of a fascinating scientific journey to figure out decisions that we can make that would help sustain more. So we'll let you know, probably in the next year. Probably in the next year. It's going to take some time. We have an entomologist on our staff, and he's a riot to watch because he comes to work and he has a net and a stick and a jar, and it's like being a little kid. It's really fun. A little kid way back when. A lot of kids now, they come. This is one of my most terrifying lines to share with you. We had a docent working with a group of little kids, probably 6, 7 years old, And she said, how many of you had a plant for breakfast today? And nobody raised their hand. She said, well, what'd you have for breakfast? And they went, cereal and toast and, jam. And they went through all this stuff. It's all plant-based, and they had no idea. So we have a lot of work to do. Go ahead. 1, 2. Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Brian, thanks for the inspirational and the inspired talk. Given the power that you allude to that we each have to be part of the solution versus a part of the problem, what do you recommend as we move forward? Because we all are followers and we're leaders at the same time. What would you recommend that we do as we try to move forward and shift the dynamic in our culture?
Thanks for the question. I struggle with all these answers, by the way. I don't have answers. I just have approaches. I heard William F. Buckley say that one time when I was growing up. He said, we don't actually have answers. We have approaches. And I thought, awesome. Kind of keeps it real, So a couple of approaches I have. If you're going to lead really well and take that responsibility so deeply seriously. Don't think I can just dance through this. Think you've got to do it well, because we need really great leadership today, and you can't fake it. Leadership to me is defined by 2 things. Did you move the needle? Did something change as a result of something you led or not? And did anybody follow you or not? We have a whole lot of people that have leadership titles, and when they turn around, there's nobody there. And others that if there's a parade of people moving down the street, all they want to do is run in front of them and pretend like they're their leader. And we see that all the time. And we see that in politics to this moment right now. So how do you actually lead? You got to move the needle. You got to have people that actually follow you. The other thing is, more often than not, we're all in a position to follow, not lead. And we have to figure out how to follow well. And that means you've got to forgive your leader from time to time. They're not going to be perfect. They're sometimes going to make decisions that aren't the greatest in the world. You can't just throw your toys up in the air and go home. You actually have to try and make things work better. Because the end result really isn't the leader or the follower, it's the deed. It's the end result. So if you have this churn and all kinds of things are happening, but no deed is actually being done, then it's not working. And that's, I'm afraid, where we are as a country today. We need to get stuff done. We have big issues to fix. And I'm not talking about America only. I'm talking about the state of Colorado. I'm talking about the city of Centennial. I'm talking about Arapahoe County. I'm talking about your business and your family. We have work to be done. We have to start getting it done. And you have to play whatever role you've got to the best of your ability. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I read The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver, and it brought to my attention how valuable bees are. And I've heard there is a great threat to the bee population. And what can we do to help foster increasing the bee population?
Bees are so cool. We have a lavender festival at our Chatfield property on Saturday. And part of the allure of lavender is that bees make great honey with lavender, right? Bees are remarkably important pollinators for our species. Not necessarily for all species, but definitely for humanity, because they are big time involved in our crops. Now, there are loads of bees that get very little attention. We have lots and lots of native bees in Colorado, and they're funny little colors. Some are blue and some are green. Some are really small, some are kind of big. They deserve our passion and attention as well. The European honeybee gets a lot of attention because it's so iconic. And when you think about it, you're all in business. You know about branding, right? You know about how to create charisma for a product or a service. Well, bees' star player, their icon is the honeybee. But the honeybee isn't the only game in town. They're just a really, really important game in town. Because we have, like the wolves in Yellowstone, we have bred and introduced more and more of these honeybees into our world. So we don't really know it's the cause of colony collapse. There are scientists that believe it has to do with everything from neonicotinoids, which are the neonics that you may have heard about, that are systemic herbicides and pesticides. You actually infuse them into, they're pesticides primarily that hurt the bees. You infuse them into the plant either through the root system or injection, and it stays on the plant for a long time. And there's a big debate about this. There's a lot of scientific data on it. And it's kind of leaning in the direction that that may not be the reason for the colony collapse. They talked about radio waves. They've talked about all kinds of climate issues. They don't know. We don't know yet. We're just testing a whole lot of theories. But when something is critical to your survival, don't you really want to know what's going on from a scientific perspective? You don't want to choose sides again, like we were doing even on honeybees, and say, we're right and they're wrong, and they're right and we're wrong, and we're having this great big war, and people get really microaggressive about this, macroaggressive about this, when we really should all be coming together and looking at it from a scientific perspective. I'm glad you asked about the bees. How about one last question? Yeah.
Along the insect line here, finding my daily microaggression is coming out against the Japanese beetle.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm hoping that maybe you can help me find my grace and some sort of insects that are helpful.
Oh, I can't with that issue. No, they're horrible. They're just horrible. The Japanese beetles are really a pain. They're an invasive. They're non-native. They came in, and we've tried about everything. And you're going to hate the solution. We tried the traps that emit. No, they just brings them all in. And unless put them in neighbor's yard, exactly. We were hoping that maybe one of the nearby parks would put a whole bunch of traps in there and it'd suck all of them away from the gardens. Basically, and this happens every day now, we have people with soapy cups of water, and they go around and they pick them off the plant and put them in the soapy water. So they're really pretty bugs if you haven't seen them. They're kind of a iridescent green and blue, really beautiful, but they eat everything in sight. And so when you get a whole cup of them, it looks really quite stunning. So there's a bit of a payoff, and you should feel grateful for that. How's that? The corpse flower. That is very true. That is very true. Well, I thank you for this opportunity. It's just a rare moment where you get a chance to stand in front of a whole bunch of people and just blather on. I feel kind of like I did yesterday where I was driving home and decided I need to just shut up for a while. But I really appreciate the fact that you indulged me for the last hour. Have a great one. Take care.
It's hard to top, Brian, so I'll just say I hope your evening is full of grace. Thank you for coming.